For years, I told God, I said I will share this testimony to everyone that has ears. Because it's not God's desire that anyone should go to hell. While I was working in the bank, I was reporting to this lady. She was very nice to me, but later on I discovered I was always finding myself, getting into trouble. And one of the days, the bosses, the director got interested and started trying to find out what was the issue. And later on, he didn't like people being taken advantage of in the office space. So I became very free with him. And then one of the days he said, let us hang out. And I was wondering, what bad could come out of hanging out? I don't drink, I don't smoke. And then he gave me an address of where to meet him. It was in VI. I got to the place. I later discovered it was his personal guest house. I was new in Lagos at the time. And as we began talking, he came towards me and tried to kiss me. And I was torn between being rude and, saying no. As I, kept saying no, he turned into something else. He became very aggressive. And he forced me and he raped me. After that experience, I left there. I could not talk to anybody. I didn't know who I would talk with. I didn't, at the time, I was not submitted to any church. I was moving from one place to the other. And while I was still dealing with it, I remember a few instances when I was growing up. I became born again first in secondary school. We're one of those people that believe that Jesus is coming now. And God used us to do great things. So I remember even when I came out of school, I kept praying. There was a scripture that they showed us then. They said it's very difficult for someone that has tasted the goodness of God and deviated to come back. So when I left school, I kept trying to make sure that I don't go away totally. So even though I was not walking close to God, I just always had this consciousness of not wanting to go get lost. So I would say I was morally sound, but not spiritually connected to God. And then one of the days, while I was still going through this experience, I was blaming myself because I told myself I went there. I couldn't tell anybody. I was dying. I will actually take a walk, and as I'm walking, it will be as if I'll be lost in thoughts. A car can even knock me down. So many instances. And then I went to midnight service, and I cried to God with all my heart. And I asked him for mercy. I left that service feeling light. I left that service feeling all the weight, the burden taken off me. The next morning, I started feeling some kind of way. And I was having to deal with the pain in my body. And I was wondering what could be the problem. Could it be that because I've not been involved in sex for such a long time, that's why my body was reacting that way? And then I walked down to the hospital just behind my house. And I went there and they told me that I was pregnant. And I thought the rape was bad. But when I got that experience, at that point, I didn't even know what to do. I just felt like the only way was just to die. And then he kept trying to apologize. He would call. I wasn't picking the call. One of the days, he was able to get through to me because he called the landline, the office line, and I was not able. They had to pass the call across to me. And I busted out in tears, because at this point, I found out I was pregnant. And he said I should come to his office, and we'll talk about it. I got to his office. He apologized. I got to his office, and as we continued talking, he was like, I kept saying my parents are going to kill me. I grew up being one of those children that my parents, people would call their children and say, be like so person. My dad, I remember one of the words the Lord, my dad told me. He said, a reputation is like taking salt and mixing it with sand and smearing it together. After you have done that, it's impossible to put it together. So I always wanted to be careful about what I do, how I conduct myself. So at this particular point in my life, I was faced with such an act. And then I kept saying my parents are going to kill me. And then when he noticed I was crying intensely, he now said, well, there's a way forward. I was so desperate to hear what he would say. And he said he had a friend that would help me take out the child. And I looked at it. He told me something. He said, nobody will know it to be our little secret, just me and you. So when I thought about it, that would have actually been an easier way out. I agreed. And on my way to the hospital that day, I remember the words that I used to say when I was growing up. I'll call my name, I'll say, Iveren, the day you ever try